All right, guy, we gotta start. We have a packed show for you at home today. It is Wednesday. It's a little middle of the week. Things have not slowed down, not on a national front and not on a statewide front. So we have lots of stories to bring to you, and we want to dive right in on those. So, Mark, why don't you just I mean, if you can, as briefly as possible, give us a quick bullet point of what we're going to talk about today.
I feel like you don't have full faith in my ability to be brief.
I don't.
Okay.
Not in the T. You can be brief on lots of things, just not the T's, which is off the top. So it's called a T's for good point, good reason.
We have a catastrophic numbers on what healthcare is costing in the state of New Mexico. For those of you who are jumping into your plans, this is beyond bad. We're going to get into that and the details and what's happening with that. Also, beyond that, we're going to talk about how policy matters in the state, and that policy flows down to a lot of areas. One of them is crime. New study comes out on crime. One of the biggest moneymakers in the state of New Mexico is in jeopardy because we can't get our crime under control. And then we had a crime issue last night in front of the county commission in Bernalillo County where they decided they want to make it more difficult on law enforcement. So they're going to. The Duke thing, we're going to address Duke one more time. He
Duke
took some
Rodriguez,
shots at our humble correspondent, myself. I can't believe this, right? I can't believe Duke would do that to me. I can't.
Where's my little violin?
Well, there's a little violin. He has every right to do that, as a matter of fact. But he teamed up with a Democrat, which is what he likes to do.
Shocking.
So he did that again. So we'll get into details on that. And then we're going to have a couple of more things, some really interesting things by a social scientist, basically, who looks at what is going on with our kids. And I think a lot of you will be able to understand what he's talking about. It's some fascinating stuff. This show is packed.
It is packed. So let's go ahead and dive on in, everybody. And let's start with this increasing healthcare insurance costs that I'm sure if you are in any sort of insurance program whatsoever, this is the time that you find out, hey, what's my increase going to be for next year? And in some cases, it's up to 50%, Mark. Like it's
unreal.
Crazy.
The insurance companies in this state, so they went out and the insurance board sent out a memo, basically. And this is that memo. This is it right here, okay? It's right here, and they talk about what's happening with insurance rates. Now, we're not going to go through every one of these, but the takeaway from this in paragraph number 1, and it's what you need to know about, it says, on average, most New Mexicans will see an increase, especially if you're getting your own insurance or you're on the exchanges, anything like that. Your average increase will be 35%, okay? And it actually gets worse from there. We went and tracked down a Money Geek story on this. They went across the country and got numbers from all over the country. And guess what? The state of New Mexico is number 2 in the country.
For highest increase.
For highest increases.
At 50, like over 50%.
Now that's silver plans. So
right.
they focused on sort of middle of the road plans here. That's why the number's a little different from what the state put out, okay? So basically, Arkansas is the only state that doesn't have bigger numbers than we do, an increase of 50.7%. The numbers go from $608 for an adult around 40 years old to $917. This is devastating.
Yeah, I mean, a family of 4, to give you an idea, we're looking at about $2,500 a month in insurance.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what we got. We just got our rates.
Yeah,
$2,500.
It's more than a mortgage. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's craziness. And here's a look specifically what each insurance company is trying to increase across the area here and across New Mexico as a whole. Blue Cross Blue Shield wants to go up about 40%, 15% for Molina, almost 30% for Presbyterian, 52% for
almost
United
53,
Healthcare.
By the way. Almost 53%.
Absolutely. Okay, so now I want to be clear on something here. These numbers and these increased insurance premiums, this has nothing to do with how much the feds are pumping into Obamacare. That has nothing to do with it. So we have a variety of things here. So when we talk about policy matters, in the state of New Mexico, we've made it really difficult to be a doctor. We've made it really difficult in this environment for insurance companies to operate. But I'm not giving the insurance companies a pass. I think we're getting ripped off. Okay,
easily.
I think insurance companies right now are doing two things. I think we've made it really hard in New Mexico, and that hurts us. I think that's part of the reason we're up on the list. But I think a bigger reason is because you have insurance companies now that are wringing out more and more money. And what are they doing? Okay, what they're doing is the state of New Mexico has stepped up and said, we see what's happening with the premiums. They're going to flush more money in to pay the premiums. So what's happening is you as a taxpayer are paying more and more to the insurance companies because they know that the state's not going to let everybody twist in the wind, especially everybody under about $130,000 a year. The state offers subsidies, so do the feds. They combine, right? And some of the Fed stuff is backing off, and so the state's going to fill in. The point being, guess who's not affected by this? Guess whose profits will continue to go up because of this? Could well be the insurance companies. Okay? This is a huge concern. So insurance companies look at this and say, well, taxpayers are going to underwrite it. So we're just going to keep jacking rates on people. And for people who don't get that assistance, for middle-class families who can't get assistance, you're getting royally put through the ringer with numbers that are off the charts. This is really scary. And this is the kind of stuff that destroys family budgets.
Well, I mean, because you think about it, like rates going up personally by 50%, something that you weren't budgeted for, something that, you're scraping by, or you're trying to figure out the rate from last year. Like that was already putting you at a max budget per month. And now it's like, hey, suddenly with no notice, basically, you get 2 weeks to make your decision on these plans, 2 to 3 weeks. You're like, now you're shopping insurance rates, and realistically, there's not much difference out there in New Mexico. We know because we're personally impacted by this as a family, and we're shopping, and it's insane. It's gotten out of control. So
and the other part of this, absolutely, and the other part of this is for those of you who have insurance through your employers. I think what you're going to see is you're still going to see rates continuing to go up. You probably won't see them go up at the rate that the rest of us are. Okay, but the point being, if you're on the marketplace or you're just having to buy your own insurance,
or you're a small business owner who has group plans that you put together for your employees, you'll feel it.
I think everybody's going to feel it.
It hits your bottom line. Are
Absolutely.
You kidding me?
So I want to dive into the politics of this because it's actually really interesting, and I think this is going to present an opportunity for Republicans and Democrats to actually come together on something. Because if you look at this across the political aisle, something has to be done. It has to be done. And many of you already know this has been going on forever, that we know that the rates are way too high. It's way too high, and we can't afford what's going on with the ACA. And just because the state of New Mexico and a bunch of other states are underwriting all of this, it's still costing way too much money, and you as a taxpayer are getting ripped off. You're getting ripped off. Doesn't matter if you're on the exchanges or not. These numbers will skyrocket, and they're going to destroy state budgets too. They're going to swallow up all of this stuff. It's really difficult, right? And so the state of New Mexico happens to be fortunate because we have so much in the way of extra money, and they are spending on this to keep those premiums down. But it's still money that is going to the insurance companies and is not going to people in the state of New Mexico who desperately need it in many cases. So I want to talk about a soundbite that I stumbled upon from Ashley Etienne. Okay, she actually worked for Kamala Harris. She was a spokesperson for Kamala Harris. And she had a really fascinating discussion with Mark Halperin. And they talked about something really interesting. She said basically, and you'll hear her talk about this, and it's really interesting because she's like, you know what? Republicans right now have really sharpened their message on the Obamacare subsidies and Obamacare in general, otherwise known as the ACA. Republicans have said, wait a minute, we've got a problem with insurance companies. They're ripping you off. And she rightfully realizes, wait a minute, that is a sharp message, one that Democrats don't want to be on the side of insurance companies. They just don't want to. So I just want you to listen to her, and then, Christy, I'll have you respond to what she says.
And I think the president sort of laid it out. He talked about the insurance companies. When I was on one of your other shows, an expert said, we don't have a healthcare problem. We've got an insurance company problem. And I think that's an opportunity that Democrats should take the president up on. I think, and I was talking to Chuck Schumer about this not too long ago. I think my concern is that the Republicans' messaging around ACA has become crystallized. I mean, in a way that I've never seen it before. Plus, we've never had to defend ACA from a defensive posture. So my point is Democrats should not fall into sort of our typical pattern, which is to defend ACA and say, what people are experiencing is not true, or point the finger and say it's really the Republicans' fault. I think we should take the president up on his offer to address the insurance companies. I mean, I think that's something that everybody, the general public, could agree with and get behind. But the real question is not whether we want to actually fix this problem. For me, it gets back to a little bit of what Amber said. Going into the midterm, everyone's trying to gin up their base. And so, MAGA Republicans love nothing more than to hate Obama. So the question is whether or not they want to fix anything related to Obamacare, because then that would neutralize it as a weapon going into the midterm election. So that's my real concern. But my advice to my party is don't fight the Republicans on this. go with them. If they want to address insurance companies, let's go along with that path and see if we can make this fix happen.
Okay. I think what she said there is very wise in many cases. The only thing I disagree with her on, I think Republicans are going to be very interested in trying to solve this.
Yeah.
The Republicans right now have an economy problem. So you can't afford to be like, no, let's let, first of all, you shouldn't let the healthcare situation twist in the wind, right? And you've got to help solve a problem. I think Trump is ultimately a problem solver and would love to take credit for fixing Obamacare or redoing the system as a whole. Now, will you see some massive bill that will totally overhaul healthcare in this country? Very unlikely. But I think what she said was really interesting, and I do think it does open up a pathway, and I think Republicans are crazy not to take it.
Well, and I think, you see even in the last couple of days, Speaker Mike Johnson is saying, listen, this is an issue we have against insurance companies. It's not so much it's something that we have to take on. So I hope and pray, even on a personal note, that this is something that gets resolved quickly, because I do think that, at a time when the economy is still in such, not exactly the place we want it to be yet,
costs are still
costs
way too
are
high.
still really high. Tacking on double costs to keep insurance programs for your family is just, it's not doable. So it's, how many jobs can people hold to cover their basic insurance needs?
Think about this. And let's just take this out of the subsidy realm, right? If you get subsidies, and it can be really, really helpful. And I can see why people need them. I mean, if you think about it, if you make, say, $140,000 a year, you're not necessarily eligible for much in the way of subsidies. And then we tell you have a family of 4, and we tell you it's $2,000 a month for you to insure your children and yourselves with healthcare. That's, along with your rent or your mortgage, that's basically, by the time you're all said and done, close to $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's massive. I mean, that puts you up against it. And so that's why I think Republicans would be crazy not to jump on it.
Yeah, well, let's keep our eyes on that, because it just feels like that is the new... That's what we should all be talking about and focusing on, is trying to get that fixed and trying to figure out some sort of, let's come together on this. I can't wait to see if Democrats stick up for the insurance companies. Well, I hope they don't. I hope that they're smart enough to not just be like, passing the buck again.
I don't think they will, but we'll see. Who knows? I don't really know. But I think that ultimately at the end of the day with all of this and the cost involved in all of it, it's something that it just has to be done here. But that's why I want to keep a through line going here, because again, the state of New Mexico, this is why it is so important to make it an attractive place for doctors to operate. This is an offshoot of that. It's not one-to-one comparison, but it is important, and we make it harder for doctors to operate here. It drives up costs all through the system. It does, because it's more expensive for them to insure themselves. It's more expensive for insurance companies to be involved here, to insure doctors. And so again, they're two different sets of insurance pools. There's no question about it. The people that insure doctors are different than the people that insure people, right? It's different. But at the same time, we still have to make this a more attractive option for doctors. So we as a state have to do that. It's absolutely huge. But the point I want to make with this story and then the next one is policy matters. And so when we have policy that makes things difficult on families, that bleeds everywhere. And the story you picked out from the New York Post definitely fits that.
I mean, look at this headline, you guys, that's coming in. It says, the most dangerous U.S. states for solo travelers revealed. For those considering some local solo travel, a new study from Silver Law Firm has uncovered the most dangerous U.S. states for traversing on your own, with New Mexico coming in at number 1. We've made another list, you guys. We're number 1 on another really not so great list. Solo travelers face unique vulnerabilities that groups don't. When something goes wrong, whether it's a car accident, medical emergency, or a legal issue, you don't have backup, said Elliot Silver. Using data from the FBI, the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, and other official sources, the lawyers looked at crime rates, road safety, emergency access and transport infrastructure to give each state a solo travel safety score out of 100 people. So this is out of 100 score. New Mexico, which is particularly popular with hikers and drivers thanks to its national parks and scenic roads.
Incredible.
Yeah. Guess what we scored, you guys? A dismal safety score of 0% out of 100. So basically, out of the top states, we're ranking the most unsafe spot to travel. And also, that you didn't put this part in there, but the last clip I had put in there was Also, additionally, we're ranked as one of the most dangerous, violent places to visit. So private property theft, car theft, things of that nature is part of that as well. So I'm sorry that I didn't make that in there, but that was also part of the story.
But it's a great example because what do we talk about at Bloom Fiesta all the time? Right, we talk about the fact that people end up, trailers get stolen. It's a nightmare. And again,
here's the thing, Mark, is that like how much money are we putting in as a state into our tourism budget? Now, here's the thing. I used to work for the tourism department a long time ago under Susana Martinez, right? So I helped do some PR marketing for them. And I know back in the day, the budget was pretty good because the travel industry here, the tourism industry in New Mexico is one of our top industries. So now you have this coming out, right? That says New Mexico is the number one most unsafe place to travel. What does that do to our tourism industry? How does it start to crumble away at our message points that we're this beautiful place to visit? You know, it's like, okay, so if we're going to just put money into marketing and I don't know, I'm not part of that conversation anymore. I'm obviously not part of the MLG administration or any part of that. So I don't know what they're actually spending on the tourism industry. But what's interesting here is what you revealed is, you know, we don't have enough cell towers. We're not protecting people. The crime policies that are not, you know, that are just flourishing about. It's having impact on things that actually bring us money, right? So you start crumbling our travel industry, which is one of our top industries. Great. That's just one more thing that you see some of these bad policies trickling down and having negative impact on our state.
Yeah. So it's one after the other, right? And so when you don't put people behind bars, this is what you end up with.
Right.
You end up with an overall crime rate that, again, we surpassed Alaska a couple years ago, is the highest violent crime rate in the country here. And so the point here being, this should not be something that is political. It just shouldn't. No. Everybody across the board, our legislators should look at this and go, what are we doing for victims? We were at an event, and we'll talk about it here in a second, with Sandoval County Representative Martinez, who does a great job for Sandoval County. And I sat at a table with him last night, and he goes, you know how many times I've had to say to my constituents that I don't have an answer for them, and then to my co-workers in the legislature, how many times I've had to say to them, who's going to stick up for victims? No one's sticking up for the victims. And the victims are the people, especially those who end up not even travelers. It's the day in, day out.
People who live here.
Who live in a small apartment in the South Valley, and they're surrounded by crime.
Right.
And they're like, enough. And you're not, and so why this happens, I don't know. But then we get to the next story, which again, this policy matters and the way it is dealt with matters. So the Bernalillo County Commission has a meeting last night, and the august commissioners from Bernalillo County decide we want to make it difficult for law enforcement in the state of New Mexico, so let's throw up another roadblock.
Yeah, so here is the headline that was on part of KOB. It says, anti-ICE ordinance passed to protect immigrants in Bernalillo County. So
okay, so hold on one thing there. First of all, the headline from Channel 4. Okay, what ICE is doing is taking violent people off the street. We have given you specific examples where people
multiple times where
people are here illegally, commit violent crimes, let back out, and then commit murder. We've talked about it. Okay, we've talked about it a ton, and you can go back to prior shows and listen to it. And so what happens is you can't have that be the framing of the issue. If the framing of the issue is ICE is coming in to take out violent criminals to make your community safer, that can't happen. If that's the framing, they lose. They know this.
Right.
So what they do is they get people together, they flood meetings, and they address issues, and they take even young children, manipulate them, have them go up in front of these commissions and say, I'm scared, okay? Which, again, nobody wants anybody to be scared. Nobody does. But the fact of the matter is, what ICE is doing in most cases is trying to take violent people off the streets here. And we have a violent crime problem. You are much more likely to have an issue with violent crime in this city and in this state than you are having a problem with ICE. That's just a fact. And anything separate from that is an obfuscation of the issue and trying to turn this into a big fearmonger effort that goes and pushes people in front of the Bernalillo County Commission. So I want you to listen to a little portion of what Channel 4 did here. And Channel 4 told both sides. But I will say that it was more heavily weighted because there were more people there saying, wait a minute, we're scared. Okay, so I want you to just listen to how this is framed, and then we'll talk about reality.
We heard from dozens tonight who support the ordinance. Only a handful of people who spoke opposed it. Many supporters spoke about their experience working with immigrants and how recent ICE raids are terrifying them. Some of them also recognize this ordinance won't stop those detentions, but they believe it will help with the growing fear.
I would hope that we can all agree that kids need to feel safe at school in order to be able to learn. And right now, my students don't feel safe.
ICE pursues people in our community, watches them in their homes, and attacks us as work. Or when we go grocery shopping. Imagine the fear we feel every time we leave our homes.
I don't know how old this
We know this will not stop all detention, but we won't stop organizing until all Nuevo Mexicanos are safe and can thrive, immigrant-friendly.
Those against the ordinance, including Bernalillo County Commissioner Walt Benson, argued it would allow illegal immigrants to continue breaking laws or hide behind the ordinance to commit crimes.
I'm tired of criminals just free to run around in Albuquerque and do as they please. And I don't care what kind of crime it is, all of them.
And so I can understand Walt standing up, right, as he usually does, with some sanity and all of this. But again, what is the risk? And I appreciate Rosie the Riveter, the teacher, standing up saying kids have to be able to be safe. Tell me what the risk to child safety is in the state of New Mexico. Is it law enforcement? It is not. And that is a lie. Right. And to stand up there and do that is completely and totally disingenuous. These people sow chaos. They put some little girl up there to say she's terrified to go to the grocery store. Okay, if you're going to sow fear in somebody, obviously they weren't terrified enough to what?
To show up and talk. I mean, I was like, well, they're not terrified enough to show up and be on camera in front of the news organizations, but yet they're sitting here saying, I'm terrified to go to the grocery store with my grandma. I just think it's manipulative. We're seeing enough of these activist groups that get together and funnel in people. I mean, who knows what's true anymore, right? The problem is you get these kind of ordinances that pass, right, saying, hey, listen, we're going to make sure that you're protected whether you're here illegally, and you've committed a crime, we're going to protect you. So explain this ordinance a little bit, Mark, because I think what's confusing about this, I've gotten a lot of text messages about this, people very worried and concerned that this actually passed last night. But our understanding is, is this just grandstanding?
Well, of course, it's largely grandstanding. Of course it is, because federal law is it takes precedent over the county deciding what they would like to say. The county can basically pound sand. I mean, in all reality. But the reality is this, that what the county says is that anyone, say, with ICE or whatever would need, within a county facility, would need to have an arrest warrant to go after somebody there. Okay, and that's what they do. So again, a lot of this is grandstanding.
Yeah, again, it's just trying to push. It's trying to push a message out there that ICE is coming in and they're the big bad boogeyman and they're coming after the kids and they're going to take you out of a school or a church. Give me a break. That's not what they're doing. And that's infuriating. It is trying to blur and cloud up the message, especially during a mayoral race where you have one candidate, Mayor Keller, who's pro-sanctuary city and, his immigrant-friendly policy. So he says he's not going to work with ICE. And then you have Darren White, who said, listen, no, you're here criminally. You're illegally. If you're illegally here and you're a criminal, you got to leave. You got to go. I'm sorry, we can't protect you anymore because then we're not protecting our society, the people that actually live here every day.
Well, and I think the problem, too, with all of this is it's one thing to create some political fight in some theoretical political fight. You know what I mean? That you disagree with someone on. And the activism and the histrionics of getting up there. The problem is this hurts families and people in the state. It makes it more dangerous. We're the most dangerous state in the country because of people like this who stand up and say, let's not solve this problem. Let's keep it going. That's a huge deal. And I don't understand it. And until most New Mexicans stand up and say, this is counterproductive for the safety of our families. It has to be. And you really look at their issue, what they're trying to constantly do here is to take away from the real issue and say, look over here. Mm-hmm. Look over here when I go to the grocery store. When's the last time you went to the grocery store?
And I showed up.
And I showed up. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. When's the last time you went to a grocery store and saw someone walk out without paying? Oh, yes. Happens all the time.
Yeah, go talk to the art clerks at our Albertsons. They'll tell you they'll tell you all the time. It's a scary situation. They hate working at night. It's terrifying. And they're sick of the shoplifters.
And it is, again, it all flows downhill from bad policy. So not every shoplifter has anything to do with someone here illegally. Some do, but most don't. It doesn't matter. We don't punish here. We don't.
Right.
And we don't because of policies like this and people and activists like this who constantly show up and are like, no, don't do this. Don't solve this problem. Let's just keep living in this state of violence, which nobody deserves.
Right.
And so that's the issue.
A tip of the cap to Walt Benson, who we adore, and he does a good job. And I know that he's in there fighting the good fight, and he is the minority on that commission. So we do appreciate him. And whenever Walt shows up on a ballot, you better vote for the guy. That's what I'm going to say there. So, okay, let's move on because we got the mayor's race stays heated.
Yes.
And now here's some more coming at us.
So there is a police organization, Fraternal Order of Police, saw the latest ad by Tim Keller, and they are furious for what the ad says. And we talked about it on our last episode here. So we're going to play you a little bit of a Channel 7 story, and then we'll comment on it. Channel 7 did the story saying, wait a minute, what exactly is Keller saying in this ad? And the Fraternal Order of Police make it very clear how they feel about it.
Lodge number 1 of the Albuquerque Fraternal Order of Police says Mayor Keller's latest campaign ad brands police officers as killers, and they're demanding an apology. You may have seen this ad on our airwaves. KOAT fact-checked it last week.
It's all why the police endorsed Tim Keller.
But one line in particular, attacking Darren White's tenure as public safety director, caught the attention of the Fraternal Order of Police.
Instead of police, Darren White's chaos led to shootings of innocent people.
Listen to that again.
Shootings of innocent people.
He's thrown the police officers under the bus as he accused them of killing innocent people.
Bob Martinez is the vice president of the FOP Albuquerque Lodge number 1. He says the line inferring police officers killed innocent people is untrue.
When you have an individual in such an important position saying that officers are killing people, that's wrong.
Okay, so Fraternal Order Police is like, that's wrong. And it's right. There was something like during that time, between, I think it's 2010 and 2011, there were something like 19 police shootings, and none of them resulted in charges and convictions for anybody involved. So to say innocent people were killed, that gives you a little window, though. When Mayor Keller takes off the mask and you see what he's all about, that's what you hear. And we talked to some other law enforcement who were like, that language is ridiculous.
Yeah, it really does not support cops whatsoever. I mean, I don't, again, I don't know how you put this same guy back in office when all we've done is deteriorate as badly as we have under his watch for the last 8 years, with homicide rates up to like 750 homicides in the last 8 years under his watch. I'm sorry. I don't know how anybody says, let's vote that cat back in. I just don't understand.
Well, and if you listen to the ad and what he's doing, what he's going to try to rely on is he's got about a 25-point registration advantage in the city of Albuquerque. So what he's going with is he's doing two things in that ad. One, he talked about Darren and the police, which is comical. But then he also said that Darren would be cruel to get rid of these tent encampments. That's not cruel. It's not cruel. What's cruel is telling the people of your city, you get to live with people sleeping on the sidewalks and urinating on the sidewalks and defecating on the sidewalks. It's ridiculous.
And doing drugs and having sex in public. Like, let's not forget those things either, because that's all happening right in front of our kids. So
yeah, so it's one of those things. You see this, you see what he's doing. That's what he's relying on. And again, we said it before, he was going to run against Trump. That's exactly what he's doing. So Darren's got to be able to get his message out there. We'll see how it all shakes out. They're going back and forth. This is definitely quite spirited between the two of them.
It's very spirited. And if you feel like supporting Darren White, please make a donation to his campaign. That's the biggest thing you can do right now, is to go to DarrenWhiteForMayor.com and make a donation, because it's very expensive to get these messages out for Darren, and every dollar counts. I promise you, I assure you. So if you want to help him, other than voting for him on the December 9th election, also donate. If you got a little extra money, throw it at Darren. Okay, so let's move on. Because holy smokes, the Duke Rodriguez, is he or is he not going to run for governor story continues to boil. Let's just put it that way. So
yeah, well, the New Mexican is really taken to this, by the way.
Yeah.
They've gone a little crazy. So Daniel Chacon did an article last week, basically listening to our podcast,
right,
and then taking our comments and then bringing them to Duke and bringing them to the Speaker of the House, Javier Martinez, who Duke is supported with massive amounts of money, and said, "Hey, here's what Christy Ronchetti, the No Doubt About It podcast said about you." And so both of them team up, which isn't a surprise. I mean, Duke and
supporting Javier,
Speaker Martinez team up to go after us, our little show. I mean, I don't know. I feel kind of like, wow, who would target us? But they did. And so I want to get into, the way this was dealt with and the way Speaker Martinez addressed us. It's one thing that I hope we can come together here and talk about this. If you don't mind reading what he said about me, which wasn't that flattering.
Okay, but wait, let's go back to the headline because you just showed it, but we didn't say it.
Yeah.
So the headline was Ronchetti, Duke could be done in the GOP primary, meaning according to Ronchetti, right?
Yeah.
So this is basically after Milan or his article that we talked about on our show, right? Which is what Mark said. So in response to Mark Ronchetti's remark about Javier Martinez, because again, Mark, do you want to talk really quickly again, recap really quickly what we said on the previous show about Javier Martinez, and really what we talked about was Duke Rodriguez donating money to his campaign.
Massive amounts of money to his campaign. And my argument was that Speaker Martinez, unfortunately, has backed policies that have hurt low-income families and middle-income families across New Mexico. It's a fact. If you look at how much we've been dealing with in this state and how difficult it is to make a living and support your family, the crime is high, the education is last in the country, and we don't have enough doctors. And we've talked about earlier in the show, healthcare is completely non-existent. That's all basically at the feet of the legislature. So that was my point, that his policy is not getting it done and he's hurting the state.
Okay. So in response to Mark Ronchetti's remark about Martinez, a spokesperson for the Speaker, Camille Ward, wrote in a statement, "Unlike television weatherman turned podcaster Mark Ronchetti, Speaker Martinez was born and raised in a low-income, blue-collar family and has spent a decade in public service delivering on policies that make life better and, quote, more affordable for working families like the one he grew up with."
Okay.
Great.
So let me just
not what
let
we
me
were
just
talking
say this. First of all, again, you can insult me all you want with all the cheap shots, weatherman, podcaster, wasn't born here, nativist stuff.
Love it.
Say that all you want, but look at what he does right away. And this is my point on this. Mr. Speaker, I'm not trying to personally insult you. I never have, ever, not one time. I would never do that. You do that to me, that's fine. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. But all I'm saying is this is about the people of this state, not about you, not about how you grew up. You're the elite, brother. You're the guy who goes to Santa Fe and chooses exactly what passes through the House of Representatives. There's no more elite than you. No one can fix it quicker than you. But instead of addressing the issues that affect families in this state, you go after me personally. Okay. And you talk about yourself personally, that you came from a low-income family. Okay, well, that's great, and I'm glad you made it, because you have made it. There's no doubt. You're at the top of the food chain. My problem is you're there now, and you're not helping bring other people up with you. That was my argument, and it's policy-based. I promise you one thing, Mr. Speaker. I will never, ever personally take a cheap shot at you or your family or where you are from, because I think it's lame, and I think it's pathetic.
And it
I
also
think what you need
doesn't
to do
matter.
more than anything else is address the problems that people have in the state. That's it. And we can have a discussion on that. So.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this a little bit. What we had said was that basically not only did his donor list pose a problem, obviously him having 25 pot shops, and the biggest thing is, did he live here in the last 5 years? And does that pose a legal issue for him to run for governor? Because it's very different than running for U.S. Senate, which is what Mark explained. And that was kind of it. So that goes back. So then Chacon, I think, picks up the phone, calls Duke Rodriguez to try to get comments back from Duke about our show and what we had said. So he says, we reached out to Rodriguez for comment, and he fired back at Ronchetti in a statement. So here's what Duke had to say, Mark, and I'll let you address this one.
Okay.
I'm honestly flattered he's thinking about me. Yeah. This is a new one for you.
Okay.
I actually reached out to him a while back just to introduce myself. He's had 2 statewide losses, so I always listen closely to his advice, mostly so I know exactly what not to do. I sincerely wish him well. Every state needs a few cautionary tales, and he's doing his part. Okay, first off, did Duke ever call you?
No, he didn't.
No, so he lied.
And I think we're about to show in a subsequent story here, which is coming up after this one. He does end up tangled in the truth
Yeah,
or
he
at
can't
least
seem to
tangled
tell
in the
the truth.
mistruth. Yeah, he never called me. Had he called me, I would have been happy to have a conversation.
Yeah, so give me a break on that. Okay.
Yeah.
But he talks about, in a telephone interview, Rodriguez said he didn't give any campaign contributions to Ronchetti, Domenici, or Harrell because they never asked. I'm glad to contribute to Republicans, but pick up the phone and call me, just like the Democrats do, he said.
Okay, let me just, I do have to respond to this one. I don't care about his other cheap shot insults about losing. We ran great campaigns. I'm proud of him. No question about it. And Duke will find out if he gets in how tough that is to do. He has no idea. But I will say this about that. Here's the thing. When you're a Republican running, you call Republican donors for money. The reason I didn't call Duke is because I don't call Democratic donors. Turns out that I didn't call, say, the Albuquerque Teachers Association and Ellen Bernstein. Ellen Bernstein would tell me to pound sand and hang up the phone, as she should. She doesn't agree with where I stand politically. I didn't call the New Mexico Bar Association for a massive donation for my gubernatorial campaign because they don't give to Republicans. So, Duke, that's why nobody called you, is because you are on the Democratic side. You give to them, not to Republicans. So while I appreciate you trying to reverse it now, I get all that, but the reason you didn't get a call is because you don't get calls from Republicans because you don't give to Republicans. You get calls from Democrats because you do give to them. Plus, anytime I see a Scottsdale number come up on my phone, I will admit I don't always pick it up. So there is that. So maybe you did call. I don't know.
Okay, speaking of Scottsdale, by the way, but we never got a message from Duke. So even if Duke called, he didn't leave a message.
Right.
So
very true. He did not call.
Okay, so here's the deal. Speaking of Scottsdale, so Milan picks this back up. Okay, this story comes out last night or yesterday, and it's talking about how Duke, this New Mexico gubernatorial hopeful, voted mostly in Arizona. This one is a dinger, a big dinger. So Duke claimed he was ready to run. Now Duke looks doomed. I'm referring to Republican Duke Rodriguez, who last week said he was 95% certain he would enter the race for governor of New Mexico. Trouble is, Rodriguez voted in Arizona's elections for nearly all of the 21st century, according to records I obtained from the Secretaries of State of New Mexico and Arizona. The New Mexico Constitution requires a candidate for governor to have resided continuously in this state for 5 years before the election. Rodriguez told me he was confident he meets that mandate to run in 2026 because he owned a house in Albuquerque since 1979. However, Rodriguez also told me he had not voted in Arizona, where he also owns a home. That's the one in Scottsdale. The Arizona Secretary of State record shows he's been a regular voter in Arizona for more than 2 decades.
Okay, so he lied.
So he lied again.
Yeah. In fact, keep going. When did he? What? So how long ago did he vote in Arizona?
Rodriguez last year voted in Arizona's general election when the presidency and a seat in the U.S. Senate were on the ballot. That was only the tip of his extensive voting history outside of New Mexico. He's voted in all of Arizona's general elections from 2012 through 2024. Rodriguez also voted in Arizona's general election in 2002, as well as many elections in Scottsdale and Maricopa County. In an interview last week, 68-year-old Rodriguez first declined to talk about whether he'd voted in Arizona elections. He eventually said he didn't.
Okay, that's a problem. Let me just, we're done with this. I'm done with this guy. Okay, we're done with this. But
No, I have one more tip. Just one more thing. I want to say this.
Sorry,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yep.
So I hope you put it in here. Oh, he did not respond, but okay, yeah. Oh, here it is. His voting history in New Mexico, by the way, is skimpy. A single entry. Rodriguez this month voted in Albuquerque's municipal election, according to New Mexico Secretary of State's records. He registered to vote in New Mexico 10 months ago on January 14th.
Yeah, right. So that's going to be a huge problem. So my point was in all this, it wasn't with voters. It isn't that voters could punish him for this. Voters could maybe
It's a law.
Right. So this is a bigger issue, is that it is the law. And so therefore, when that's the case and you clearly haven't lived here, that's the problem. And what we said at the time, I'm not beating up on him. We just said, don't get in the middle of the race and have people support you and then have to backtrack and say, oh, wait a minute. That's exactly what we said. Please don't do that. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
So that's all. Just be honest about these things. Don't say something to the press that isn't true, that is so easily verifiable. It makes you look like you're not honest. And I don't know if he's honest or not, but clearly he said he didn't vote in Arizona, and clearly he did. Mm-hmm. So those are the sorts of things that destroy your credibility with voters. And it hurts the party, it hurts everybody when you're not willing to be honest.
And again, going back to the original story, this wasn't a personal attack towards Duke. All you had said was, hey, somebody needs to have a real conversation with what you need to be able to run in a statewide race for governor here as a Republican. That was the whole point of the whole story.
I have no personal vendetta against him at all. I mean, obviously he attacked me a little bit, which is good. I like his attacks. I think they're spicy and they're exciting. So, but I think at the same time, just again, do the people of the state a favor and don't treat them like they're idiots and be like, oh no, you just tell people stuff that just blatantly isn't true. So again, we got to move on from that. All right, we're really tight on time because I'm telling you, my iPad's getting ready to die. So you want to see what we're going to do? Here we go.
Okay.
So what's our last thing here?
We're going to talk a little bit about kids today and the fact that some of the parents, and not all parents, know how detrimental TikTok's actually becoming to kids and how the series of events that's happened. But we pulled this clip from Jonathan Haidt, who we do listen to and we watch a lot of his interviews because he's kind of the number one guy that's been following the impact of social media and TikTok on today's teens and the young millennials. So check out this clip that he was on, and I just think it's a little shocking.
Yeah, he's on the Free Press, is who he did this interview with. And, we're going to have 3 different pieces on this. So here's the one on how we've maybe given up our kids to TikTok.
And in almost all societies, there were adults to help them make that crossing. And the adults controlled what was coming in about identity and morality and what your duties are. Over a couple of years, the child makes that transition. And what we've done instead is we said, how about if we adults completely abdicate our responsibility? We're busy, you've got a phone. How about we just let you spend your puberty on a phone, and then weirdos on TikTok are going to be the ones that set your brain? I think we need to find ways to have our kids apprentice with other adults, like, send them for sleepovers at like your cousin's house or your sister's house or something, like get them out of just living with you, get them, a job. When my daughter started babysitting, it was like she was just glowing from the new responsibility and the money.
So it's interesting, and it's absolutely true. What ends up happening here. And so I just want to hit one other one.
Yeah, no, I think we should hit all 3 of these clips. I think that this next one is really talking about how liberal girls have been really negatively impacted by social media versus conservative and faith-filled girls. It's kind of an interesting breakdown on that. So let's play this clip for you as well.
Here's 3 terrible, terrible ideas. And if you believe them, you're almost guaranteed to be a failure in life. It's what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Always trust your feelings. And life is a battle between good people and evil people. And for liberal girls, a lot of them got sucked into that kind of mindset. And it happened on Tumblr in 2013. That was the transition point when certain ideas were developed. So that's when girls' mental health takes a tumble. If you graph out liberal boys and liberal girls and conservative boys and conservative girls, it's the liberal girls who really rise first and fastest on depression. And the conservative boys are not up that much. So everyone is worse off, but being conservative seems to root you. You're not as easily pushed into this crazy world. Being in a religious family seems to root you, and those 2 things seem to be protective.
It's really interesting, right? It's super interesting, and I think it's so true. So for so many of you who raise your children with faith in a conservative household, there's actual real data that says you are doing them a massive favor. And you do see some of the spread, too, between men and women and how they vote now. That leads into a lot of this, because a lot of the people that you saw check those things out in 2013 on Tumblr are adults now. They're adults now and they're voting, and you're seeing a huge gap and a huge difference in the way we view the world. That's why we talk about faith all the time and how important it is not only to our family, but we think it should be important to everybody, and try to open that door to anybody with faith because it's so critical.
Right. And here's this last one, which I thought was a tad bit disturbing. And this is just how we've kind of created an addiction, especially for boys, and not just in social media. This is something that continues on down a path as they go into adulthood. So take a listen to this one.
Boys are easily drawn away to anything flashy or shiny or mechanical. They're more easily distracted. They're a year behind in brain development, as Richard Reeves points out. And so for boys, what happened, I believe, is once they all had devices, now it was open season on their dopamine systems. And it was hugely lucrative. If you could get a boy's dopamine system, that would stop it from another company getting it. And so the battle among video games, and then when they're older, it's porn, and then there's vaping, and then there's sports betting, and there's gambling within video games, and then even investing. If you're a young man, even investing is gamified on Robinhood. All of these things, it's mostly boys that are having the addiction problems. And so what we're doing to our young men is we are addicting them in such ways that if you get addicted to one thing, it's easier to get addicted to everything else. And so now we're surprised that our boys are not turning into men as much. They're not finishing college. They're not getting jobs. And they're less likely to move out of the parents' home.
And they're not having sex and dating.
Exactly. That's right. But don't worry. There's a fix for that. As Mark Zuckerberg says, young people want more companions, and so we'll make them for them. AI friends. That's right. AI friends and sex bots. That's right.
Yeah,
Unreal.
just
It's
sad. It's a very scary situation.
Yeah, so you look at it, you see what happens and what social media does and how important it is to rein your kids back in that. But man, it's absolutely true. And even where I spend a ton of time, like I'm always on Cowboys stuff, podcasts, everything. They're filled with betting apps now. They're filled with it.
Wow.
The whole betting thing is devastating.
Yeah.
Because if you're not careful, betting, porn, stock trading, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And if you're really subject to that sort of thing, it is absolutely life-wrecking if you're not careful.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with that. Okay, we're going to end on one quick thing. We went to the Americans for Prosperity event last night at El Pinto, and Mark was part of a panel. You got to do a kind of a Q&A last night with State Rep Rod Montoya.
Yeah, Rod Montoya, yeah.
Yep, and I think you did a great job. There's a couple pictures here I threw in here. Answering questions on what are things that we can be doing, how are federal policies impacting the state. Again, it was this group really does work really hard, grassroots, to try to get the word out and try to help people, knock on doors, things like that. They work beyond campaigns. They work really on policy issues. And so, of course, that speaks to our heart. And I thought you just did a really good job last night.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, you were in the front row, which was nice. And you were trying to, you were doing like weird faces to try to distract me, but it was fine. No, I appreciate it. It was good to be out there with people who just want to make sure that we are able to, in this state, kind of head in a direction that benefits everybody. And I think when you get all those people that gathered in, I don't know, there's probably 100, 150 people there. It was great. It was good to see them, good to catch up, and good to talk to a group of people again instead of a microphone.
Yeah. We got to get out there, guys. That's kind of our thing. So
that's our thing.
Thank you so much for joining us and spending a little time with us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, rate, review, whatever you can do, and sign up for our emails on nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and we will see you back here on Sunday. God bless.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.